Look at the whole pandemic. And it's great because people say follow the science. And then you watch the science get confused. And wait a minute, the science has this part of it, but the virus itself went this way, it mutated. And so then follow the science means follow the mutations. And if you're following the mutations, why not just follow nature?
If I look at the culture as it is, the sort of modern civilization-based culture, there seems to be an ever-increasing march towards more control, more more domination, or more as a sense of sort of buttressing against this uncertainty, right, and lack of safety.
Yep.
And so, if people are true to that, then their way of feeling, I'm aligned with this big story, is to double down and try to exert more control or get us back to normal. And yet, I don't hear that. I don't think that's what you're saying. That there's some other way of being stirred by perhaps the big story or the soul of the world into some other kind of unfolding. And I just wonder how to differentiate between those, because it can get difficult to discern.
No, it's part of what's going on. The modern Western influenced world is based on logic, loosely I would say, but anyway, based on logic and predictability. And the ability to, imagining that rationality is a higher function than, natural things and all that kind of stuff. They used to call it the Enlightenment. But notice it didn't work out the way they thought. Everything was going to be solved and cured. And instead we got the Endarkenment. And so in the Endarkenment, the issue isn't how to control, dominate, and especially it's not how to have, what do they call that? The carefully planned project. Look at the projects now. They're defeated left and right by unexpected things and the rapidity of change. Look at the whole pandemic. And it's great because people say follow the science. And then you watch the science get confused. And wait a minute, the science has this part of it, but the virus itself went this way, it mutated. And so then follow the science means follow the mutations. And if you're following the mutations, why not just follow nature? And so then what I think happens is ultimately, repeatedly, the preference for domination by logic and rationality and so-called reason, even though I don't think it's actual reason, but anyway, as that continually doesn't work, more people will begin to imagine other ways. And so if I go back to stories, so one of the stories I tell a lot nowadays and think about a lot is the Native American tale of the first people, when the first people on Earth. And it was back at the beginning, close to creation. And the first people, as it turned out, didn't like the place that they were on the earth. And they were complaining like out loud, saying, this isn't so great, Like what they actually said was, we don't rest well and we don't have big dreams. But it was so close to the beginning that the one who made the earth, that's who the creator is in this series of stories. The one who made the earth speaks to them directly and says, if you don't like it where you are, go somewhere else. So the first people began to wander. And of course, humans have been wandering ever since. And they eventually found a place where they rested well and they had big dreams and they knew that was home. And so they stayed there. And then you think, great, okay, end of the story, everything. No. As they rested well and had big dreams, some people got sick. It was the beginning of the world. People didn't even know what sickness was, much less know what healing was. So no one did anything. And those people that got sick were dying. And so then in the story, it says 4 people went out as the darkness was falling on the world, and they each went in a different direction, and they stood and looked into the darkness. And then the one who made the earth spoke to them and said, listen, on the earth, for every illness, there's a cure. For every sickness, there's an antidote. For every trouble, there's a solution. And then people had knowledge. And so that's, to me, a beautiful, because the delivery of knowledge happens at the same time as the delivery of knowledge about healing. Knowledge and healing are supposed to go together. And when the Western world decided that you could abstract knowledge and separate subject and object, they broke the healing bond with nature.
Mm.
And so this story shows how it was there. So anyway, the story goes on, and those 4 people become the first healers. And then they use the messages they get from the dark. They use that to bring everybody together, and they begin to heal everybody. And that healing includes telling everyone the story of the origins and how everybody came into the world. And, you know, we're all connected because we are all connected to the origins of the world. And so that's called how healing ceremonies began. So what I take from that is, on the threshold, we're like those 4 looking into the dark, except there's many more of us. And each one gets a vision from the darkness. That's the old idea, that the real vision for life doesn't come from getting more light. It comes from dwelling in darkness. And climate crisis throws everybody into darkness and confusion. And COVID literally threw people into isolation and darkness. And if you just followed the motion, and the old idea, Zahir, you mentioned the idea, die before you die. That means go into the darkness where the ego that tries to dominate everything says, I have no idea what to do. I don't know. I don't know. And that creates the opening through which a new vision comes. True visionaries are not people who never lost hope. They're people who lost hope and found vision. We're being called to do that.